Um, Ann Tiemann is absent, though she may join us later. We have 5 sets of minutes to approve. 3 from open session on April 28th, May 6th, and May 10th, and 2 from closed sessions on the April 28th and May 10th. I hope everybody's had a chance to look at them. I would move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the minutes are approved. We have some appearances. Before we note public appearances, I would like to note that Jill, if I get your last name wrong, I'm sorry. Is it Mueller?
I say Miller.
Miller, okay. Well, I had 50-50, and then there's Mueller too, which is not common, but all right. Jill Miller is been nominated by the mayor to take my place when I step down from the commission, which will be after tonight's meeting. And so Jill, I thought it would be a great idea to have Jill sit in and see what she's getting into and meet the rest of the commissioners. So the other commissioners here are Jeff Simmons. Hi, Jeff. Joe Fontaine and Tom Stolper, who's furiously taking notes for the minutes. So Jill will be approved by the council on June 7th, at which point she will officially take her place on the commission. So welcome, Jill.
Thanks.
We have a number of members of the public. Does anybody want to communicate anything to us before we hear from the chiefs and have our annual meeting? Doesn't look like it. Why don't we do this? Since the chiefs are here, why don't we move the the elections to the end so we don't have to have the chiefs wait? And I guess it's sort of a coin flip. Why don't we start with Chief McMullen, just because he has the best Zoom background of any of them. So.
Thankfully, I've got a good photographer that gave me a picture of that. So
it's very nice. There really is no format to this. It's very open-ended. The ordinance just kind of says we hear from the chiefs, and really we just invite you, and whatever you think you want us to hear that might be relevant to how things are going in the fire service, fire and EMS, or especially your hiring needs for the upcoming year or so. Would be welcome, but it's really up to you to tell us what you think is relevant.
Well, first of all, good evening, happy people. I start all of my meetings that way. I think it's I've been here 9 months now. I still feel that this is the best job ever. I smile when I come to work every day. Wonderful people in the fire department. So fire department wise, things are running well. I'll start with staffing. We're fully staffed -1. We have one of our full-time members is deployed. Was deployed last year when I started, was back here for a couple of months and was deployed again. Someplace warm and sunny, that's all I know. Supposed to be back sometime in October or November. But we've been able to compensate fairly well with some part-time LTE staffing. To keep the staffing levels up. Volunteer numbers are up. I have a volunteer process that ends tomorrow, maybe Friday if I keep getting applications in. I've got 9 currently that'll go to the board of directors next week for review. Excuse me. We have adjusted some of the volunteer onboarding practices. I took a look at it through the diversity and inclusivity and equity lens to see if there were ways that we could manage some of our hiring processes to be a little bit more bias blind. So is probably the best term I can use. So we're going to start out with our folks that have applied, no names, no addresses, as completely neutral as we can make it for the initial questions. So board of directors are looking strictly at their qualifications and their answers to their questions. And then from there, we'll move on to phone interviews and live interviews and go from there. We're really trying to stress Monona residents if we can. But so far, again, the full-time, part-time volunteer staffing model is working well. I can tell you with no reservation that I am looking for no additional full-time staff next year. We're in good shape. That may change in future years, but next year looks just fine. I may bring on 1 or 2 more LTE staff, but there's little to no cost to the city for that. They work hours as needed, so there's no benefit cost to that. Volunteers, we're looking to run 2 cycles a year. This is the first one. Second one will be in late fall. So people come on board as a group rather than one at a time. So they have a cohort of people to work with, as opposed to onesie twosie people coming in and possibly getting lost in the cracks of the department running. Other than that, we've implemented EMS training for the first time in, I'll just say, a while. It's been quite a while since we've had any EMS training at the department. Our first one was actually last night. We've got a new EMS training committee with a full-time member and 2 volunteers that put together some fantastic stuff. Actually displaced the officers meeting that has always been traditionally the last Tuesday of the month. It's now going to be EMS training night, and we'll work out a different night for the officers. Budget-wise, we're in good shape. The switch over to the new billing company has been successful. It took a few months to get things sorted out between the 2 companies, but things are progressing well. Our folks are documenting very well. Truck-wise, I believe we're due a truck in 24. We put an apparatus committee together 2 months ago just to start the preliminary look at what we need to do. And I believe we're going to go down by a truck. We're going to, the old Monona Squad 5 is going to be decommissioned and not replaced. So we're going to utilize engine 2. It was built to be both a squad and a pumper back in 2017. So we're going to save some money and some insurance costs and maintenance costs on taking that out of service. We do have some new ideas percolating, nothing firm yet, but we do have some new ideas for some additional teams for the department that'll help expand our services at very low cost or no cost to the city. But what we're looking at is trying to provide some special teams that will draw volunteers in, that make them want to come do more stuff down at the station, but also expands our services. So a bike team is on the radar. We're looking at doing some work on water safety and some of that. So we will have some new stuff, but it's going to be very low impact on the budget. I'm mindful of the city budget, and we try and do the best we can within that. Other than that, I'm going to reiterate what I said at the beginning. I'm having a great time. The people are great. The city's been great. I'm out and about almost every day, getting out and meeting people, and we have such a wonderful group of people, not just in the station, but in the city itself. I meet new people almost daily. If you follow our Facebook page, you'll see I posted a picture this morning from a young lady. We rescued her 2-year-old from the car, and she promptly wanted a picture with our crew next to the ambulance. So we're out meeting wonderful people every day. What I will say, moving forward over future years, is staffing will have to be a consideration in future years. We're busy. Yesterday we had 8 calls for service. Today so far we've had 7. It's not a rare day when we have more than 5 calls. It's becoming much more commonplace. Last month alone we had 196 calls. So it is getting busier. The volunteers are doing a wonderful job. Our full-time staff is doing a wonderful job. If it continues to climb, we will have to readdress staffing at some point. But right now, at least through the end of 22, we're just fine. And I will be more than happy to give any heads up if we need to change something in 23 or 24. But if this trend continues, staffing will have to be addressed in the next few years. And what that may be, I couldn't even tell you at this point. I have some ideas, which would be beneficial to the city, I think, but we'll address those as we go forward. But so far, so good. I am going to throw one last plug in here for Sarah. She's been awesome. Her, Kurt, the whole police department. Best police department I've worked with. Sorry, new chief. I worked at Madison for a lot of years, but the folks here are they're fantastic. So just want to throw a quick plug in for them.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Jerry, I'm just wondering, can you categorize the types of calls you're getting, or is it just, a mix? Or I'm just wondering.
100%. I can tell you by percentage what we do. So as of the end of last month, 86% of our calls are EMS calls. So EMS related calls. We have a fair number of car accidents, which have climbed with the construction on the Beltline. My crews were just out there an hour ago for another one, as was Monona PD. But car accidents, fire alarms, EMS calls, that's the majority of what we deal with.
Okay.
Are car accidents the main driver of the increase in calls, or are there other big threads?
EMS calls overall are up. There was a lull last year with the pandemic and people being afraid to call for whatever reason they may have had. That seems to have ceased being the case at this point. They're definitely calling again.
Steve, I assume you're talking to me since you're
Yes,
muted.
go ahead.
Okay.
Jump right in.
Okay. Jerry, question on how you do the counting. So if there is an EMS call and the ambulance is dispatched, presumably the engine responds as well. Is that one call or two calls in your 7 today or 8 yesterday or whatever?
Yeah, if there is I can tell you, like yesterday, there was 8 distinct calls. The way that I provide the report to the council every month splits out fire calls based on whether it's an EMS assist or whether it's a non-EMS assist. So you have an idea of how many actual fire-based calls we have as opposed to going to assist EMS on a call. So if I have them log calls on everything, and the reason for that is if I send my ambulance and the fire engine has to roll or whatever piece of equipment has to roll the system, that piece of equipment is out of service. It's assigned to that call, so a fire call gets generated for that. So, but I do split that apart in the monthly report to show 50 of these fire calls were EMS based, and there were 42 other calls, which may be car accidents, car fires, brush fires, fire alarms, that sort of thing. So that it counts as one call, but there is a call log for both fire and EMS if they're going on the same call, because that truck is out of service.
Yeah, and I totally understand the out of service stuff. I did that job for quite a number of years, but I just wanted to verify how the counting was done. So I think you said 196 last month, if I'm recalling the right number. Those are distinct calls.
Correct. So last month we had 110 distinct EMS calls. We had, and I'm going to go off the cuff here. I don't
That's
remember
fine.
the exact numbers, but basically half of the fire calls were EMS assist and half of the fire calls were not. So out of that 196, there would be 160 distinct calls, and then calls where there were 2 units assigned to bring it up to the 196. Because
Okay.
each time
That's kind of different than what you said before on the 8. The 8 were distinct, but the 196 is not distinct.
It is
160.
distinct, and the reason I call them distinct is every time that I page out the fire department, my volunteers are being called.
No, I understand that.
That is a distinct fire call. just because they're being utilized to assist EMS on one of their calls, it's still a distinct call. So there were 196 times the pager went off. And that's why it's categorized that way. Because we're the combination department, I have to be able to log when my volunteers are being called out and when they're not.
That I totally understand, but we're talking semantics now in terms of what's a distinct call, and we don't need to continue. I know my answer. So thank you very much.
All right, any other questions for the Chief McMullen? If not, appreciate your appearing to talk to us tonight, and glad to hear that things are going so well and you're enjoying Monona. So that's
I'm
fantastic.
absolutely loving Monona. So you folks have a great night, and I will I'll bow to the police folks. So
Thanks.
Thank you.
On the police side, we have not only one, but two chiefs. We have the interim chief, and Brian, I don't know if you're the chief elect or what you are precisely, but you will be the chief coming up in a few days. So either one of you or both of you can make a few comments. And again, it's very open-ended, whatever you think's relevant for us to know, especially hiring, of course, given our function, but whatever's on your mind.
I will start if that's okay.
Yeah.
So it's no secret that we are short-staffed. We are down 2 officers, and our hiring process to date has not resulted in a lot of candidates. And so we are, number one, based on the time, we kind of ceased proceeding with the process other than to accept applications to give the new chief an opportunity to weigh in on the process. And so we are currently have a process open where we've gotten quite a few applicants, but the reason that we have gotten those applicants is we removed the requirement to have the academy. So we said it's preferred, but it's not required. And so we've gotten quite a few more applicants as a result of that. What that means is there may be a substantial amount of time that will be invested in having the candidate go through the academy and then the field training process after that. So there'll be an increase in the length of time before that officer would be road ready to fill the position. So since we're down, the overtime costs might be a little higher, but we have been short for at least half the year. By the time we hire, it'll probably be longer. So I think overall that isn't going to have a huge effect on the budget this year. We are still dealing with morale issues. Just obviously the last year has been tough, not just for the Monona Police Department, but just law enforcement in general. So that's something that I know we want to work on here. And I think Chief Cheney Austin has some great enthusiasm, and I'm looking forward to him coming on board and working with him. And as far as future goals, that is something that, I think I will let him discuss those because that's kind of his show from this point forward.
Thank you, Sarah.
Can I just have one question, Steve, quick?
Sure.
When we say that we're taking people who haven't been through the academy, does that mean they still have police experience somewhere where they took maybe classes at MATC, or these are just people who are interested in becoming cops?
So
Okay.
it's possible that they have taken some classes. We haven't looked real closely at any of the applications yet, but it's probably not likely that they have. So it's just people who are interested in being police officers. I can't even say for sure that they all have the 60 college credits that are we've asked for in the past. They do have a period of time to gain those. So my guess is that most of them probably do not have any experience and don't have any prior classes taken, or at least a majority.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Sarah. Appreciate it. Brian?
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. But by the way, if you didn't hear me say it in the other meeting, which you probably didn't, thank you, Sarah. Has been wonderful. Sarah, Kurt, and the rest of the team have been wonderful in getting me sort of acclimated before my start date. I'm actually using a Monona laptop right now, so thank you very much. And I look forward to working with the crew and being part of the team. So as Sarah mentioned, really recruitment is really one of the #1 goals in my first immediate days and weeks. Kurt, Sarah, and I have a meeting the first week to talk about that. And I really want to hit the ground running with respect to making sure we fill the vacancies that we can fill sooner than later. We'll have to discuss some of my philosophy and moving forward, what I believe makes somebody qualified for this job. And to the point of opening the process up for those who aren't certifiable, that means they did not put themselves through an academy or are not currently a law enforcement certified officer in Wisconsin. That does open up the candidate pool. And let me tell you something, as a criminal justice major, and my professors are probably going to smack me at a distance for this, but you can teach somebody how to become a cop, right? What you can't teach are being able to effectively communicate necessarily. You can, I mean, there's courses on it, I get it. But some of those are inherent skills. Somebody who is compassionate, caring, understanding, has an appreciation for diverse opinions and diversity in general. Somebody who is approachable, and somebody who is going to be effective at doing what is a very noble job, but it's a very challenging job. We also need somebody who has a good support system in place to sustain them in this job for their career, and hopefully would be a healthy career. So I'm not going to be out there necessarily looking for criminal justice majors. There might be some, which I'll be happy to come across, that are going to meet all these qualifications, and that'll be great. But they don't necessarily get extra credit because again, I'm looking for those life skills and those experiences that they bring to the table. And so that's #1. I'm going to spend my time half in-house and half out-house. So this is part of the in-house discussions that I'll be having with the team. And then out-of-house, I got to figure out what the community expects. I got a little sense of that already. You can imagine the phone calls have started coming in, and I have an idea. But I want to make sure that I'm also out there communicating and listening to folks in the community about what they want in their next police officer as well. So as Sarah mentioned, yes, that is a goal and priority, and something that I'll sit down and talk about. We just left the meeting with the Public Safety Committee, and one of the other things that we will be addressing are some of the concerns about traffic safety, et cetera, within Monona, and that's something that will involve more discussions, conversations about bias, some review of what trainings are out there that we can really look into expediting and implementing within the police department. And then formally, these discussions need to start happening. And so a lot of work to be done. It's not going to get done overnight, but we're going to hit the ground running. And, Sarah and Kurt have already been doing a lot of these discussions and have had many of these conversations, and they're patiently waiting for the new guy to start next week. And so we will get work done. You have, as you all know, really good folks at Monona PD who had a hard year. 2020 was hard on all of us, and so we'll rebound from this. We'll be okay. And so we appreciate the support that this committee has given us in the past, and we look forward to any guidance that you might be able to offer us, but particularly any hiring guidance that you might want to provide.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question for Brian? All right, look forward to your starting date, Brian. That's June 1st, correct?
June 1st, 9 a.m., the library. So excited about that one. Check out a book while you're there.
Okay,
All right. Hey,
excellent.
can I just say something sort of cheeky? Does the fire department always get to go first? I mean, geez. Oh, he's still on. Sorry, Jerry. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda is the selection of the 2 PFC officers for the upcoming year. So why don't we start with the president? You can't pick me, so who wants to be president for the upcoming year?
I'll do it.
I'm not participating in this whatever, other than I'll vote to make it unanimous, but other than that, you guys figure it out. So Jeff and Joe.
That's fine with me. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's vote on, I guess we should have somebody nominate Tom to be the president.
I nominate Tom to be the president.
All right, is there a second? Jeff seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Now that raises the next question, which is the office of secretary, which Tom currently holds. And he probably will not be willing to act as both president and secretary, nor probably should he. So that leaves Jeff and Joe. I suppose we could you could nominate Ann since she's not here. That's a tried and true method.
I've done secretary long enough, so I'll pass that on to somebody else.
All right, who is willing to be the secretary for the upcoming year?
I'll be the secretary.
All right.
I will make the motion for that.
Okay.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Also passes unanimously. So,
Steve?
Yes.
We have one more thing we have to do. We have to appoint one of our members to the Public Safety Commission. That's an annual thing that we do. And assuming that Joe he's our current representative, and I would nominate him to re-up for another year.
Joe, you're willing to continue in those roles?
Yes, sir.
All right. We have a motion to appoint Joe. Jeff, are you going to second that?
Sure.
All right. Moved and seconded to appoint Joe Fontaine to be our representative on the Public Safety Committee, or to continue to be our representative on the Public Safety Committee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Passes unanimously. All right, then. Unless there's some other business anybody has, I think we can entertain a motion to adjourn. Tom.
Steve, before you do that, I would like to offer a motion. Thank you to Steve Brzezinski for his leadership and a job well done. He's been a PFC member since, you need to fill in the date there for me, Steve.
I don't even remember.
We can find out. I'm sure Brian can get that. And you've been president since, again, it's probably 15 years, I'm guessing.
It's a while.
And so on behalf of the current PFC members, the PFC members in the past, and on behalf of the citizens of Monona, a hearty thank you. I would offer that as a motion. That will turn into something that's a little more refined when you see it in the minutes.
A hearty second.
Unless there's some opposition, we can pass that unanimously, so
By acclamation, perhaps.
by acclamation. Well, I appreciate that, Tom, and it's been my pleasure and privilege to serve for so long, and you know, I think things are changing, especially in the police department and the police service, and certainly time for me to step aside and have somebody else lead the way. And Jill, I'm sure will be a fine commissioner, and look forward to hearing what you all come up with. So with that, I would move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right. Everybody in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We are adjourned.